we stay with the baby boomers? Do we go with the millennials? If we stay with the millennials and we alienate those that brought us to the dance, what's that going to do to us? And so we found that you had to have a story that talked about how you were going to disrupt the market. You had to have somebody in operations that actually had a huge experience level. And the huge experience level is not for what you think it is. It's because you got to have someone who's willing to break all the rules. You got to have someone who looks at everything and says, it can't be done like that at all. And they've got to create an environment that tells their people it's okay to come up with an idea that's never been done before, that violates all the rules. So we had a saying, have a saying. As long as it's legal, ethical, moral, no one's going to jail, we're not abusing people, I don't care what you do. Just keep me in the loop and solve the problem. Period. We have 200% turnover among our drivers because we were delivering at 3 o'clock in the morning. So find a way to deliver that doesn't deal with that. We'll deal let's do it during the day. Founders were totally against it. It was going to ruin the company. Guess what? We changed to daytime delivery on Sundays. It didn't ruin the company. In fact, it grew sales. So you have to have a disruptive nature and approach to whatever industry you deign to enter. You have to have some kind of leader who has deep experience in that area, but deep experience so they can look at things in ways to break all the rules and do things completely differently than anyone else. You have to have systems. No one's going to like it. You're going to be thought of as a nerd. But if you don't have systems, food cost, labor tracking, sales growth, weekly P&Ls, monthly P&Ls, week to date, year to date, against last year comparisons. And there are various software systems that do that within the industry. Start there, because most of them are doing it already. But you have to find one that works, not one that promises it will work, which is what they did. Because the #1 driver for them was, is it open source? Because they wanted to be able to tinker with it. And it was cheaper that way. Rather than find one that works and is going to produce the results they need today, right now. And if you have to make every decision based on what's the cheapest thing, you're underfunded. One of the other principles that I have found has served me well when I get involved in any of these kinds of projects is a Stephen Covey principle from his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm an absolute disciple of Stephen Covey, by the way. And it is seek first to understand, then to be understood. And the reason why that's so important is because it's really easy to walk into a situation and look at everything and say, you got to change all of these things, and however you're doing it is wrong. And so we need to do all of this. And you've never figured out why they were doing it that way in the first place. And sometimes, because you didn't ask and you didn't look at why they do it that way, you didn't realize that there was probably a reason that they went there. And that while it may not be the right solution, you certainly have to address those issues that they're trying to address. You lose credibility very, very fast when you just start making sweeping changes without letting everyone be heard. So when I first went to work for him, I said, the first 30 days I'm going to do nothing. And I said, wait, what? I said, I'm going to do nothing. You're not going to get anything back from me. I'm going to spend my time with your people and see what they do and why they do it that way. I'm going to attend every single meeting you guys decide to have. I'm going to be part of, at least listen to every discussion we have. Then we'll start talking about what I think you need to do. And they said, well, why are you doing that? I said, because I want to understand why you do what you do first. Then tell you how there might be a better way. So, disruptor, systems, and the systems have to be written. If they're not written, they're not systems. And they're going to be violated 5 minutes after you make the rule. You've got to have something that someone can pick up and read and say, oh yeah, we're supposed to do it that way. And there has to be at some point in time some planning as to why you're doing what you're doing, what you hope to accomplish. So some kind of mission statement and some kind of business plan. One of the most powerful things we did was I made all of the senior executives stay late one night. We waited until everybody left. I was standing in a room and every single wall was a whiteboard. And so we started with, what does it mean to be a personal chef? Let's just take apart, because the actual name was Hey Sage. And the reason why it was Hey Sage was because Sage is spelled S-A-I-G-E, not S-A-G-E. So it's like the wise person. It's supposed to be very powerful. And Hey Sage, you're actually theoretically talking to someone. And so it's supposed to mean, hey Sage, what are we having for dinner tonight? True story. And they could never figure out how to message that. And I pointed out that maybe that's why they shouldn't be using it in the first place. But they got involved with people down at, well, I'll tell you who they are there, but they have a very large consulting company and had a large footprint of credibility that came up with it. And it just didn't work. And they couldn't figure out how to message it. So let's talk about who we are. And I made them sit for about 3 hours and we wrote stuff down. And after we wrote it down, we went through and sorted it the top 10 most important things. Then they came another night. Who do we want to be? And we wrote down all of those. Then we sorted them and figured out the top 10. And we did things like that having to do with who they are, why they're in business, why they want to be in that business, what they hope to accomplish, what benefit do they hope to bring to their customers, why should their customers use them versus somebody else. And we found that at the end of that, I was able to then construct like mission statements and vision statements and send them out and say, okay, so what do you guys want to change? And they would come back and say, nothing, this is perfect. How did you do this? I didn't, you did. I just made you sit down and do it. Now I can give you a reason to want to come to work every day and be excited about your work. And I said, really? I said, watch this. And we had a small meeting, pulled everyone together, and I said, so the other day we made this mistake and I had to call these customers, and this is what they told me. I don't know what we ever did before we started using Sage. The eating issues in our home are so complex and so diverse because of food allergies and health requirements that we don't know how you do what you do but you're making some mistakes. We need you to figure it out. And I read a few like that, and then I said, you come to work every day with the ability to impact people's lives. People usually wait till they're my age, retire, and try and find something so they can have a legacy because they've squandered their life. You guys are starting out as millennials being able to do that. And by the way, we're going to pay you for it. And they're like, wow. And I turned to the founders and I said, see, I can tell a story now that gets people charged up.
Still there at that point, the one that couldn't articulate.
Yep.
You want to
Yep. He got let go like 2 or 3 weeks after. Mostly because his one and only big claim to fame was Facebook marketing. He was considered a guru within the marketing industry. Except, no, he had a lot of the analogs figured, a lot of the algorithms figured out. And then Mark Zuckerberg had to appear before Congress and talk about all the massive amounts of information they give out and they sell. And that they've been doing that for years. And so then Facebook changed everything and he became useless because now he didn't understand anything that Facebook was trying to do. And he couldn't figure it out. We gave him a very short period of time to figure it out. He couldn't do it. We let him go. The way we trimmed down the kitchen from having over 50 employees, there were a lot of employees that it was very common for no call, no show, where people just wouldn't show up to work. And so my rule was to the leadership over in the operations, if they don't show up, they're fired. And you don't get to replace it. Because they've just proved that we can go through an entire production cycle and not use them. So why go through the process of hiring, training, et cetera, et cetera? And within a month, we had that thing cut down to like 15 employees. I didn't even have to be the bad guy. And within the next 3 weeks, it was down to 9 people. And I never had to fire someone. I just didn't replace anybody. Now, it was harder. On the other side, we had to make some pretty hard decisions with respect to the massive amount of G&A we were spending. And it was atrocious. And so we ended up laying off about 25 people. We didn't wait for anything. We just hauled them in and said,